Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget, you can read my work on ESPN.com. I'm going to have a story up at some point soon. Not sure exactly the day, but on Jaden Daniels and year two, and what I basically learned from talking to coaches, the owners' meetings earlier this month. So stay tuned for that sometime in the next several days, I do believe. And of course, there'll be more draft talk coming up very soon. Anyways, today I'll be joined by Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders, as we make the case for why the Commanders should draft an offensive player. And we're doing that playing off of my conversation with ESPN NFL draft analyst Matt Miller that ran on Tuesday. So we just want to I had him talk about all the offensive players. So Bram and I make the case for drafting an offensive player. We will make the case for the defense next week. So take a deep breath before people freak out, because yes, we both know that the defense needs to improve, but it's kind of tantalizing to think about what this offense could become, and also why you can't dismiss improving this offense through the draft. Because if there's an offensive playmaker there, of course you want to take him, but I kind of give you some numbers as to some things to think about when looking at this draft and the players you take. Again, it's best player available, great. And if it's defensive guy for the first two picks, that's great, because we know the defense needs work, but we do make the case for offense. So stay tuned for that. Also for you, Gold Club members, I will be doing the private Zoom on Thursday at 7:30 Eastern Time. I'll be joined by Craig Hoffman from the Team 980. If you want to become a club member, go to the Ampire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on that, go from there. But it's just another way to bring you another voice on here that you can ask questions about, find out more about them and their thought process, or just what they think about what the Commanders have done and might do in the draft. Craig is very well versed in this stuff. That's why I like having him on. That's why I wanted to bring him on for you gold members. So there you go. Anyways, folks, that's it for me. There's going to be more draft talk. I will be back on Monday with another episode. We'll be having part 2 of the Matt Miller conversation about the defense. And then Bram and I again next week, we'll talk about the case for the defense. And I think it's a pretty strong case, but you can, again, bear with us on the offensive side, because it is tantalizing for sure. And I will be doing more podcast leading up the draft. So anyways, stay tuned for all that. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. All right, Bram. So I had Matt Miller on Tuesday talking about the offensive players in the draft. And for everybody listening, I'm going to do the defensive one with Matt. I'm going to run that on Monday. But for now, you and I are going to talk about the case for offense, since that's what Matt just talked about. So let's talk about the case for offense for these guys, especially with the 29th pick, because they're going to pick somebody on offense. But what would you say, if they go, hey, the best player there is an offensive guy, despite we know about the defensive rankings, why should they go there? Why do you think they might go there or would go there?
I mean, I'll say this for both sides of the ball, like where they're picking, and considering how wide open I think the board is for them, I do believe they're going to go after the best player possible
Right.
for them. So, and I think that applies to both sides here. But when you're going to make the case for why go for the offense, in my opinion, I thought that we were a year away from having to make a decision like this. Like, which side of the ball are they going to try to tip on the other side?
Right.
Because they have Jaden Daniels, because he's so far ahead of the curve, because of what he had, because the prominent moves that they've made so far were necessary moves. An explosive playmaker outside of Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, and help, and this is more than help, along the offensive line, getting a Pro Bowl, all-pro level left tackle, which then trickles down to Brandon Coleman moving to right tackle for now, but helps out an offensive line while they wait out Sam Cosmi. You start to look at this and you go, you know what? They are another weapon or two away from potentially being one of the best offenses in the NFL with the personnel grouping that they have. So my biggest case for why I think offense would be, and I'll have them go either way here because I think they have needs on both sides, but I do look at the offense and I go, if you were to bring in one of these top tier running backs, maybe a top tier receiver, maybe even another offensive lineman, what does that do to help that side of the ball be dominant in year 2 under Cliff Kingsbury and Jaden Daniels? And I'm not sure what the answer is to that.
So here's a couple of reasons why I would strongly look at the offense, right? And you can can make the case for both sides, but we're making the case for offense right now. So let's look at the schedule first because this year they're playing 8 games against teams that finished in the top 14 in defense. This past year, they played 5 games against such teams. Now, we're doing this based off last year's rankings, and that always could change, et cetera. So, but you look at like the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Packers, those are good defenses. Then, so like that's one reason. So you can't just assume, well, they were top 5 here, add Debo, is Debo enough outside or at receiver, the skill position, to really kind of continue that level of play. And obviously Tunsil makes a difference too. So that's one thing. And then I think the other thing, Bram, is like, let's say they could get a guy like Matthew Golden at 29 because of the speed he offers, right? Or a running back. But let's look at receiver first because I want to stay there for this reason. Yards after the catch, yards after the catch as a receiver, they were 21st in the NFL in yards after the catch per catch. Like they were 18th in yards after the catch overall. So they're not making a lot of big gains enough big gains after the catch to be that explosive, consistent offense. And then they had another number from True Media. They had let's see, where was it? Oh, 15 touchdown drives of 6 plays or less. All right. Buffalo had 29 such drives of 6 plays or less. So like now I'm going to say that. And the last number with that is they had 10 plays of 4 drives or 4 plays or less, which was pretty good. Comparatively, I think that was like top 5 or 7. But overall, I know there's a lot of numbers here.
Well, two of those, John, were a Hail Mary and that Terry McLaurin against Dallas touchdown.
That's true. Okay. Thank you. That's a good point. Very good point. But so let's look at that though. Like they're going on more longer drives than other explosive offenses. So if you can add another explosive element to that, it just shortens that, which of course then helps the defense. And if it gives them more to work with. It keeps, like if you're getting quick drives, it doesn't keep them off the field necessarily, but you're getting touchdowns. So like that's it. And then, so that's the reason at receiver, I would look strongly there. What do you think?
Two of the things to go back to a couple of things you brought up, which is they on the schedule, at least from last year. And I agree with you. Like last year, things changed. Like who would have thought the Commanders would have been 12-5? Who would have thought the Vikings would have been 14-3? You don't know, right? So things change very quickly. But I also look at the other side of it too. And I go, they're playing the AFC West and the NFC North. These are going to be good offenses, period. The Chiefs have a great offense. The Broncos are coming around. Bo Nix was very good for them. We don't know what the Raiders are going to be, but they have competent quarterbacking now. The Chargers have Justin Herbert. The NFC North is going to be a buzzsaw with the Lions, who had the best offense in the NFL. The Vikings, who had a very, very good one. We'll have to see now with the quarterback change. The Packers, who have a high propensity. And the Bears, which I think under Ben Johnson have to be a lot better than what they were. And then you got to beat the Eagles. And so I look at this too, and an off game is Atlanta. An off game is Miami. Like I look at this as well going, I do believe that this team is going to have to be a top 10 to top 5 offense to actually win a lot of games because I think they're going to be in some high scoring games. I trust this defense to be good. Do they have the personnel to be great? I don't know, which is why we'll make the case for
we'll do that.
It really needs the playmakers on the other side of the ball. But when you look at where they're standing right now, I trust the defense to show up every week, to make enough plays, to not get burnt, to not have breakdowns, to keep the team in the game. What if this team had an offense that was at times, like Josh Allen, like Pat Mahomes, unstoppable? And that's kind of what feels like is in front of them with a choice here, especially if they go with a top-tier receiver like that, or in my opinion, a running back.
Right. And I think the other thing, and Matt Miller made the point in the podcast the other day, if you didn't hear that, go give it a listen so you can know who we're talking about, et cetera. But his point was too, if you throw another guy like Golden out there, for example, on the outside opposite McLaurin with Debo running underneath, now the defense has to play you different, which then can make Jaden Daniels as a runner even more dangerous in the run games, right? So like you're able to impact multiple ways with that kind of a player if they hit. And there are a couple good receivers. Like, again, I keep bringing up Golden because he gives you that speed on the outside. I like Ibuka in the slot. I think he's a really good type of McLaurin type player in terms of culture, attitude, blocking, etc., that you would really like. But there's other, Jaden Higgins, guys like that. Ty Felton from Maryland down, in the later, in middle of the draft, whatever, could maybe give you some of that dynamic element that you don't have. The other thing is too, Bram, with receiver, especially the last thing on the receiver for me is the money aspect because McLaurin's going to get an extension. That sounds like it, right? But then like Debo last year, Noah Brown's 1 year deal. Like who's the guy next year that opposite McLaurin would be there that you can also maybe build on, right? And I think I wouldn't mind getting another young receiver in there because of the cost of that position.
Yeah.
It's really expensive.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think this is going to go around to in both of these conversations. They still have a lot of needs. Like there's still not a complete roster. There's still a lot of needs. I am more leaning towards running back in general for the point of this conversation, but I'll hear you out. And with someone like Matthew Golden, if he is available at 29, it's going to be very hard to turn someone of that talent level down. And I'll agree with you about the makeup of what the long-term roster looks like and having somebody at that price point that could be a difference-making player is a big deal.
Right. And I actually heard Daniel Jeremiah talking about that in his podcast too, about that angle. But I think it's like you don't bypass a good player. I will say running back to me is very enticing as well, whether it's Hampton, as Matt Miller talked about. If you can get in the second round, maybe a Travion Henderson. Obviously,
Yeah.
I'm very familiar with him, but he gives them what they would need. I do like the running back from the standpoint of as my dog sits there and tries to bark out whatever he wants, but I like the running back from the standpoint of balancing the field too, giving you another element to attack the field with and getting those chunk plays. And I got some numbers for there too. They had 67 carries of 10 yards or more, but so that ranked like I think it was like top 10 or top 12. But when it came to running backs, they were 20th in the league, 21st in the league with only 35 carries of 10 or more yards. They need more home run, big chunk plays from that position. And that's clearly number one reason to me why I would look there as well.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and all the other running backs are all in the last year of their deals. When you talked about yak yardage, Eckler contributed to some of that. Like,
Mhm.
like they need an explosive playmaker, and there are a lot of very, very, very good running backs that are available here. Hampton really stands out. Henderson really stands out to me. I'm not going to pretend I'm Matt Miller or anything here, but those two really stand out to me. And just consider what level of can they take some of the pressure off of Jaden if they had a running back that was going to make some big plays, hit less singles and more doubles and triples and a home run every once in a while, or a back that can come out of the backfield and be explosive. Like I think that there is room for that here, and that could be the jump. And like when I always hear people say like, you can't take them in the first round. Why? Like I don't understand that. Why can't you? You take the best player available that you think is going to make your team that much better. Like, trust me, they're not upset that they took Bijan Robinson as high as they did. He's one of the best running backs in the NFL. And we'll see in an offense like this where he fits and what kind of playmaker he can be. Washington doesn't have that guy right now. And I don't know whether these people are, but we'll see.
And I think the other part too is what will help the run game. You still need that dynamic back, but what helps is improving the line because line to me got bullied down. Well, they did not play their best on the stretch in the run game, and I had like another stat. So in the last 11 games, including the 3 playoff games, the running backs averaged 3.0 yards per carry or less 6 times. Like they cannot. It's going to be hard to sustain that level of performance when you're facing these better Ds. You want to have more to offer them other than, hey, Jaden Daniels can run too. Well, we know that. But if you want to protect him, you want to limit that aspect of his game to when you really need it. When he need, you know what I mean? So I think like that's another reason why I would have no problem with them if Hampton's there, or even in the second round. And like, the other thing is, again, we talked about this the other day, if you got a receiver and let's say it's like, oh my God, the best player at 29 is a receiver. And then, oh my God, the best player in the second round is a running back. Like that would be a lot. I don't think they would do that,
Yeah.
but I think that would certainly lead to
I
an
mean,
explosive offense.
lastly, I'm not throwing out the idea that they could take a tackle, that if the right tackle pops there and they really like that person and they think that that could be their right tackle and they move Brandon Coleman to guard, I don't take an issue with that either. After the Tunsil trade and after Dan Quinn saying that Coleman is going to start at right tackle, it read to me like that's not a direction they would actually go, or at least that's not what they're thinking
It's
about
the
right
first
now.
thought.
But if the right person that they really like happened to be there, I'm not throwing that out the window either as a
No.
possibility too.
Hey, if it makes them better, listen, I think Coleman can play. And it's just a matter of does he play at right tackle or does he get pushed inside? And they'll try him at right tackle first, see how it goes. But if you're drafting a guy there or in the interior, I'm okay with that too if it makes that group really good. But I do think you want one more explosive element at the skill position players to really take this offense to another level. Last thing, would you take a tight end? And if so, where?
I don't think I would take one early. I think there are other more pressing needs.
Right.
I want to see if Ben Sinnott develops this year for sure. They just re-signed John Bates. Ertz is back as at least a bridge for this year. I don't feel it as a need like I other these positions. I think this is a big year for Ben Sinnott. And so I want to give him the opportunity to grow in this offense and find the right role and be the tight end of the future. And so I'm not thinking very high at that position group.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that too. And I think, again, if it's the best player, fine. But I do, for the reason you said, let's see where Sinnott develops and how he gets where he goes. And if something happens at the position, if you have enough of the skill players, then you can adjust your offense and still be very good. So there you go. That's our case for the offense. We'll see what happens in a couple weeks, and we'll be back next time with our case for the defense. That's it for this episode. Thanks to Brant for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back on Monday with another episode, so I'll talk to you next time.